Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Bald Explorer Live. I'm Richard Phobes. We are going to be reading, I say we, obviously you're going to be listening. I'm going to attempt to read the story of a Norfolk farm by Henry Williamson, of which we are over halfway now. We are 3/5 through, which might be a strange percentage, but that's where we are. And it's a bit wet and miserable outside. Good afternoon to Steve G, to Ed Loud, to lovely Julia, to Adrian, and to Edward Moulding, and anybody else who's just tuning in. Do come along and say hello in the chat if you can. If you can't, it might be because you're watching on your phone and it's awkward, or you're watching on your television and you don't want to. And that's fair enough. Fair enough. We're a bit early. Sorry about that. I just thought I'd switch on. I just I've been getting stuff ready, cleaning out the kitchen and tidying up this morning. I've not been out videoing today. I made 2 videos yesterday, so I have got something, but I need to do one for tomorrow. Not for tomorrow. I need to do one tomorrow for the next day. Mark Donny McLeod is there. Hello to you. Nice to see you. Nice. How are we doing? Nearly time. So we hadn't quite finished the chapter, which I forget what chapter this one was now. It's quite a longish. Chapter 28. And there's just a few pages left on this chapter, and it's called All Is Experience. So we'll see how we go. As I said to the lovely Julia earlier today, yes, I can't wait to see what chaos befalls our hapless hero in this. Good afternoon to Audrey. Hello to Andrew Norris. To Welsh Wanderer, Jason Patrick, good afternoon. And to Stiltskin, hello, I am barred from my local Tesco for saying you can't catch a virus. I think isn't that a truism? You can't catch one. There's a difference between a virus and an infection. No, what is it? There's a virus and there's a... What's the other one? I've lost it now. I'm so used to saying about viruses. Can't believe that you were barred for just saying... I mean, now, the voice police, the word police is out everywhere. Peter Fardell, if you want... that large weeds growing in the front of your gutter on the front of your house, if you want that large weeds growing at the front of your gutter on the front of your house, give us a shout. I have some ladders. I can get rid of it. Peter Fardell, that would be fantastic. I was looking at that. I don't know what it is, but it looks like it might be a buddleia growing up there. And I was looking at that a couple of months ago, and it was quite small. And then I looked at it about 2 days ago and thought, yes... I can get onto my roof from the back and I can crawl over, but it's right on the edge of the bay window. And I don't feel confident of climbing out onto the bay window and trying to dig it. Thank you. And I know that my son has had some water coming in. He's got the bedroom there underneath it, and he's got water that drips in when it rains really hard. And I think, obviously the water is clinging to the plant and is coming in through there. So, yeah, let me know. That would be fantastic. Let me know when you can do it and how much you want to charge. But I do need to be rid of it. TurboStream says he's definitely a master of chaos. He certainly seems to... what is it? When you encourage... What's the phrase when you encourage? Certainly seems to... not tout it. There's a word, isn't there? There's a... Oh, I can't think. Virus is created internally. Bacteria. Yes, that's right. There's virus and bacteria. Thank you. If it's cannabis, the old bill will help you. Yes, I bet they will. They'll confiscate it, won't they? Where was this? This is Big Brother element to all this. Yeah. Anyway, I will carry on reading, but yeah, it's all very exciting. It was now time to make. Sorry, I'll start again. It is now time to make the seed bed on 21 acres. The Holland and Hay aftermath had been ploughed under January. No rain or frost had disturbed the furrows, but the land had no clay in it and would break down nicely. It was a dark, loose soil, but not so light or scold as that of the derelict heaths to the west, which in places... That's my phone ringing. One moment, please. I should just get rid of it. This is embarrassing. Hello, Corinne.
Hello. Just, have you seen the email?
I haven't seen the email. Just so you know, I'm live on my Bald Explorer show.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, well, you didn't know. I didn't have to answer the call. Everyone's eager. Is this good news or bad news?
No, it's extremely good news. So first of all, can I just congratulate you because you've obviously worked some magic.
Oh, right.
Because now we're going to exchange.
We are going to exchange.
Yeah, an email from Lucy has just arrived, and then one immediately from the solicitors.
Oh,
so,
God.
Yeah, so well done. Some magic has happened.
Oh, well, I knew, sometimes you just got to talk to the boss of the firm, and he did say, I'm going to send a rocket up there, whatever.
Yeah, well, it's obviously happened, doesn't it? Because he has, all the times I've phoned Lucy, I cannot tell you how many times.
Gosh.
But you're quite right. Speak to the boss.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, that is good. I haven't seen the email. So that's good. It means I'll have to go over there and cut the lawn then before they move in.
Well, so what they're saying is, I'll just quickly tell you, they've sorted out all their problems, and it will be done by the 15th of July because the people at the bottom of the chain, that's when their mortgage offer expires. So it has to be done by then. But then Lucy's just asking us if there are any personal possessions in the property still. So I don't think there are there?
No, there's nothing.
No, so I'll just email that back, and then the solicitors have just said hers is short and sweet, and she just says they wanted to know if they had copies of signatures at the solicitors. Which, do you remember, we did that 8 months ago, didn't we?
Oh gosh, yes.
Feels like years ago.
Well, I think it was end of last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, so that's it. So she's saying she's got the signatures and she's going to start with a transfer.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Well, that's very good news. Thank you very much for letting me know, and now all my viewers know as well.
And hello to all your viewers.
So there's a house leaving party going on. We won't say exactly where it is. In case it gets trashed.
Then all that good work of keeping it clean will have gone, won't it?
Well, I think it'll be clean on the inside. It's just whether or not I need to bother to go. I could go and have a look at the garden and just see what state it's in. And a sign of goodwill would be to give the grass a cut.
Just a sort of cursory thing.
And I've got to go and read the meter anyway to do all that. So I'll probably do that nearer to the 15th.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's going to happen. Doesn't it feel like?
Well,
Do you know?
I'm still not counting my chickens till it's happened.
Well, that's probably wise, but I did feel after speaking to you yesterday that things were going to move.
Ah, well, that's good.
I didn't expect it to be so quick, but so that's brilliant. So I'll just email and say there are no possessions in the property.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Thank you, Corinne. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. There we are. That was my sister passing on good news. Very good news. So the 15th, yes, I will have, with my sister's assistance, sold the house of my father. Oh. And then we'll see what happens after that. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Congratulations and blah, blah, blah. That would be good. We can pay off some debts that have accrued on the back of that. Some say Chanctonbury is a hill. That's true. It is a hill. The hill of Chanctonbury. Still waiting for my grandfather's house up in Hanwell, West Severn, to go through. First time it failed. and the poor clearance guy and his team who helped clear it still waiting for his, blimey, 27 grand. That's a lot to clear a house. Ed Loud, nice to hear your sister again. Have her back on the show. Yes, next time she's up this way. So, yeah, how good is that? Sorry about that interruption. I do actually take my phone in here because, as you can see, I rarely get phone calls. I don't have any friends, that's the thing. Now you can do a Vobes UK tour of 2020. Well, that's it. I can certainly think about a camper van. Right, where were we? We will continue with this mad story. Thank you very much for all that stuff. Right, so I think I might just start again because I'm not quite sure where we got to. It was now time to make the seedbed on 21 acres. The Olland and hay aftermath had been ploughed under in January. No rain or frost had disturbed the furrows, but the land had no clay in it and would break down nicely. It was a dark, loose soil, but not so light or scold as that of the derelict heaths to the west, which in places were now set with firm plantations. Scold was a word used by Bob when he, in the previous summer, had pointed to some thin grass on the castle hills near our camp. It was withered through the heat. There was about an acre of scold land on 21 acres, near the hedge, shutting it off from the hills, light sandy colour. The field sloped steeply just there to a small valley or trough before rising sharply to a minute cliff of whitish clay, out of which grew blackthorns and elms, making the boundary hedge of the next farm. I had an idea of digging some of that whitey yellow clay or loam, which grew nothing, said Bob. About half of it, mixing. You see that he's in a paragraph. Let me just explain how this text works, because this is what. Here, look. He's in a paragraph, okay? And he suddenly has a character talking. No speech marks, nothing. Suddenly a character is talking. And there am I trying to do the differentiate between somebody talking and the narrator's prose. I had an idea of digging some of that white yellow clay and loam, which grew nothing, said Bob, about half an acre of it, and mixing it with the scald on the land above. It gave me pleasure to think of a marriage between... Now, I don't know who's talking now, because it's come to the end of that sentence, and I don't know if there's speech marks or not. It gave me pleasure to think of a marriage between those barren earths producing fine crops. I think that's back to him now. I'd noticed during the camping days of 1930 summer's fine weather, strong-looking thistles and docks that had grown on that concrete, hard, white land. There was nourishment in it. One day, I said, it would mingle with the sand above and stiffen it, as the great Coke had dug his marl pits in the 18th century and spread the stuff on his scold fields. Bob, however, had doubts and didn't share my enthusiasm. Hares and pheasants lived in the weedy wilderness. I longed to take the tractor there and leave rows of deep furrows for the sun to bake and the frost to crumble. The next afternoon, I took the lorry to bring back the ridroll, which had been made up with a new axle and tractor hitch from the wheels which I had brought from the Diddycoys. The name is probably a corruption from Diddy K. One day, when I have leisure, I will read Borrow. I guess Borrow is a poet or an author or something. I needed 5 men to haul and push it up the oak planks into the lorry. It was 6 feet wide and had 4 new wheels made up to that length. They'd cost 18 shillings each, where the wheels I had bought cost 2 shillings. I thought the weight too much for the light Ferguson tractor to draw up the steep slopes of 21 acres, North End, and all of Hilly Pierce, but as usual, I had given way to the expert opinion. The implement dealer, who had made the rubber-tired tumbrels, £37 each, suggested that anything less than 6 feet in width would be uneconomical for a tractor to pull. Most rib rolls drawn by tractors, he said, were wider than 6 feet, and in addition they drew wing rolls, hitched to the ends of the roller frame, covering an area of 18 feet in all. He had experience of a Ferguson tractor. Had he experience of a Ferguson tractor? I inquired. No, he replied, but you will find it will pull 6 feet easily, and if it doesn't, it can't be much good. I doubted his judgment at this point, but had given way. And now, as I went round 14 acres in second gear, I cursed myself once again for allowing myself to be persuaded by others. The field, excuse me, bit of COVID there, the field dipped near the oak wood which bounded its north side, and the soil there was light with gravel and sand. I tried to draw the roll up the saucer-like dip, and at once the tractor wheels began to dig themselves in. This was on an incline of about 1 in 8, and the patch of soil was particularly light just there. Even so, I wished I'd been firm about my idea and had the roll made narrower, especially when I thought of the very steep land of Hilly Pierce. It was the same with the tumbrels, excellent carts, but too heavy for hilly land. They were 9 foot long and were supposed to give a full tip. The order had been given on the... They were 9 foot long and were supposed to give a full tip. The order had been given him on the understanding, yet when Bob had tried to shoot a load of mangolds from one, they had not slidden off. All had to be hauled off by hand fork. Why were the tumbrels built so massively, I wondered. They must have weighed more than half a ton each. The old-time carts on iron wheels had to stand heavy jolts, but pneumatic tyres absorbed most of the shocks on bad roads. Our roads, too, were good and would remain good with no iron wheels to cut them up. I could see that if I wanted original and adapted implements in the future, I must work out all the details myself. Experience could only be gained by experiment. "We won't be in no muddle," said Bob. We had got out of the green trailer, which when empty, could be pulled round and wheeled about by one man easily, and taken up the muck with it in 50 loads. The idea of spreading the muck on Hilly Pierce was to grow roots on the advice of a farming expert, but later my doubts had returned after hearing what some of the older village people had said about the field. It was the worst field in the district on which to get a seed bed. One day it would be too slippery too, the next it would be too dry. In the old days it was always autumn ploughed, for the frost to break up. Then 6 or 7 teams of horses would start to cultivate it, and the 9 acres of it finished in one day, on the right day. It had never been known to grow mangolds or wheat, so when the muck had been spread, I decided to leave it there and plough it later, and kill the thistles by bare fallow. All the ammonia in the muck would be wasted, I knew, and I cursed myself once more, not for sticking to my original plan, a bare fallow. One can't help feeling that he's written this for other farmers to understand completely, because the layperson surely cannot get all the nuances that there are in this with all the bits and pieces that he's got in there. I went round 14 acres drawing the rib roll at 2¼ miles an hour, and I began to see where all the advice I had was leading me, away from myself. By always listening to others, I had crippled my natural judgment, frustrating my will. It had been the same with writing books. I had to struggle with nearly everyone I knew in order to write them the way I felt and conceived them. In future, I told myself, I would not compromise about my ideas, and looking over my shoulder, because the tractor was digging in, I saw 24 cast iron wheels of the roll locked together and the earth being pushed before them. The heat of friction had made them expand, and they were solid on the new axle, despite the grease in the hubcaps. Yeah, we knew that he was going to have an issue. In my present frame of mind, this seemed a minor disaster. No rain had fallen for weeks, and the clods of 2 acres of stiff land near the road were already hard. Bob had drawn the cultivator through the furrows a fortnight since, and though at the time it seemed wrong to me to do this without rolling immediately afterwards, to crumble the clods while they are moist and docile. "You don't have to worry," said Bob. "After rain, we will put the harrows through them. Then the 1-horse roll, you'll see a lovely seedbed. But supposing the rain doesn't come? It's already exceptionally dry for the time of year." "Oh, rain'll come. We shan't be in no muddle." I still had no idea how the 1-horse roll acted, or why it was different from the 2-horse roll, or a 3-horse roll, which was a rib roll, and the kind which had been hitched to the back of the tractor. It was just after 4 o'clock, and men from the next farm were cycling home to the village. One got off his bike, seeing me trying to scoop armfuls of earth from before the roll, and asked if he could help. I explained that the wheels were not properly fitted to the axle and were immovable. "Oh, a new roll's always tight," he explained. "When it cools down, you'll be able to get it going, and the wheels will cut themselves free. It's a nice thing you got there, and the Barley will feel the benefit of it on your Holland. You'll never regret buying that one, I'll warrant." He mounted his bicycle and coasted away downhill. I cleared the soil away, started the tractor, and went round the field. Bob, astride Blossom, was leading Gilbert home along the new road after harrowing 21 acres, and Letitia was pushing a go-kart with Richard sitting in it, and was coming up the hill with my tea bag. Afterwards, I went on with the work, finishing the field at 10:30 in moonlight, and went home and tried to write an article, but I was too tired. I'm not surprised. "I'm going with you, Mr. Underhill," says Silkskin. Just having a quick look. "Good afternoon, everyone. Julia, I still love to see the photos of you and Joseph. Didikois are travellers who are not gypsies, and therefore looked down on that reason." Oh, okay. Is it him or the publisher or the proofreader? Yeah, good. Well, this is it. Who knows? Well, I think he said, he likes to write his own way, and he clearly does that. And I think every writer should write their own way, only if people can't read their work, that does tell you something. Sort of the market decides, doesn't it? Chapter 29, The Oats Go In. Let's hope this is an easier chapter to read. On March the 2nd, a fine day, Bob and Norman drilled 7 acres of 21 with oats. I had one of those in Norwich. I had bought one of these in Norwich with an... Bought one what? I bought these. What have you bought? I bought these in Norwich at another place for 7 shillings the bushel and 28 shillings a coombe, and brought them home in my brown trailer, which had been made out of an old Crossley front axle in Devon. It was the best of the 3 trailers and could travel at 50 miles an hour without any sway or feeling that it was behind. Please can we have an easier book to read next time? The speed, or one that's coherent, the speed was seldom used, and then only on good straight roads with little or other traffic passing. By bringing the oats myself... Oh, is it the oats? That's what he's talking about? He bought the oats. Right, okay. I had no idea what he was talking about. Starting a new paragraph, new chapter. Please explain yourself. Thank you. By bringing the oats myself, I've saved 5 shillings, which paid for the journey to Norwich. Good man. It was a good seed bed. The rib roll had put the furrows down tight, and the spikes of our new rank harrows had dragged and shaken the fine, warm tilth into the gaps and air spaces under the surface, so that the roots would not hang but find the mother without check. The mother was the goodness of the Olland. I still don't know what an Olland is, Olland. The decaying fibres of grass and clover which would nourish the living plants. Is that what the Olland? Do you know, I am losing the will on this book. I am beginning to think we might finish this. Bob was pleased with the harrows made to his order by the village blacksmith, who was also clerk to the parish council and a teacher in the chapel Sunday school. He was a mild-spoken, honest man with pale face and dark hair, Norman type, and worked in the forge with his younger brother. The harrows were in 2 pieces, each 4 foot square of wrought iron, to be dragged at a slight diagonal behind our pair of horses, while the recurved teeth, or tines, with their sharp points, dug in and dragged at the ground already loosened by the bigger teeth of the tractor-drawn cultivator. The Olland on 21 acres had not been cultivated. Is the Olland the old turf? Is that what he's saying? It's the old stubbly rubbish from the... Is that what he said? The roots. Where is it? The decaying fibres of grass and clover. Is that what he's calling an Olland? The Olland on 21 acres had not been cultivated. As Bob said, the fat flag, or grass of the downturned sod, must not be brought up but kept down to rot. After rib-rolling, he had used the rank harrows, first following the line of the furrows, then going over thwart or across. The result was, who wants to carry on reading this book when it is so damned full of technical speak and nonsense that one can't follow the bloody thing? I am beginning to lose the will, I have to say. The result was a seedbed in which you could draw the toe of your boot and feel it all come up lovely, in Bob's words. Blast! There'll be a crop on here. You'll get 20 coom an acre. I ploughed a 10 each furrow with the tractor, pulling the docks and thistles down. You won't see them no more. Pause. You know, I like that new tractor. A boy could drive it, but I don't think it'll be any good on Hilly Pierce. It's a bad old land. Blast! I could kill 6 horses on there, easy, if I was hard-hearted. That old pair of horses I had used to sweat and stand still every other yard. Well, you said once that nothing could beat horses for ploughing up there. Have you changed your opinion? No, I haven't, he replied hurriedly. But that, I'm afraid, that little old tractor won't make a job of it. I know, you know. I just don't say anything. I've seen other tractors stronger than that just scarp and dig themselves almost out of sight. Well, we'll see. Bob and Norman had put in the oats and were going home. Rooks on the ash tree in the hedge were waiting for them to depart. I shouted at the birds, but they were wise. They knew more about farming than I did. They just waited for me to disappear. I walked beside Bob as he piloted home the Ferguson and the new drill, which was designed to sow anything from large beans to the tiny brown and yellow clover seeds, which were smaller than the sweets called hundreds and thousands in the village shop windows. Oh, right, okay. It was an American drill costing nearly £50 and sowed 23 rows or drills at a time, each 4 3/4 inches apart. It had arrived with a pole for horse drawing, but I'd had a tractor hitch made to replace it. On rubber-tired wheels, which were £45 extra, our tractor could drill in top gear on level ground at 4 miles an hour. I like this patent, said Bob appreciatively. How about those rooks? They won't take our corn, will they? Shouldn't it be harrowed in? Well, they'll take some, no doubt, but 'tis leaving off time, and I'm tired, though I'll stay if you order me to. No, I'll do it. I'll hitch the harrows and the tow bar to the Silver Eagle and get it done in no time. Bob stopped the engine and got off to help me wind the chain around the bar and then to hitch the light zigzag seed harrows to their pulling tree. I started off and soon was doing 20 miles an hour in second gear, the engine revving almost flat out. Doesn't sound good. After twice up and down the field, I stopped to hear a subdued bubbling thunder in the radiator. Yeah, he's overheated it, you idiot. And to see steam blown up in the vent pipe. There was no fan behind the radiator to draw cold air through the comb. And since the car had been designed for speed and not for transport. Oh, yeah, it had been designed for speed, not for transport. I waited for the car. I thought it was the tractor. I waited for it to cool down and went across the dark brown earth again, slower, while the rooks watched from the treetop. One old bird with a white face dipped and cawed as though derisively. "You're larn," it seemed to be cooing. "You're larn." The water was boiling again, though not so violently, and I stopped to let it cool. "You won't beat horses for that job," was Bob's parting remark, shouted over a hedge as he covered the drill with his canvas. "You'll learn," croaked the old rook. That night I read the chapter in The Chronicles of Clay Farm, where the chronicler describes his difficulties with the drainer of 40 years' experience, and I began to see why some philosophers love the truth declared there was no such thing as progress. The man is an idiot. The man is an idiot, and I really don't think he can write very well. I second where's Morton's? Just do it with silly accents, Richard, then it's light-hearted. Yes, just trying to get the sense of it. Think Holland may be growed. That is arable land put down to grass, grassland and pasture. Oh, right, okay. Lay ground. Oh, okay. I wasn't listening, honest. I was pruning my parsnips, I was. Fair enough. Phew, that was a rush. Hello, Linda Kane. Nice to see you. Right, we're on chapter 30. Oh, blimey. And it's only 4:30. I feel like I've been reading for hours. I've just started reading this book, by the way, No, I've just got this book. This Land is Our Land by Marion Shoud. And her other one, The Theft of the English Countryside, I finished that one. That's fascinating. I'm reading books which have got coherent sentences in. And then I've come back to this. Chapter 30, The First Barley. I finished the harrowing and went home in the dusk. Next morning, early, I watched with satisfaction the tractor drawing the green trailer laden with the barley seed in 10 sacks for drilling on the remaining 14 acres. It was a Saturday, and Letitia was coming to take Bob's place on the drill at midday. Then Anne was coming at 3:30 to relieve Letitia, who had the hens and the chicken and the hens and the children to attend to. I felt at last the farm was beginning to work according to plan. I was beginning to know and love the pale sun of East Anglia and the clear remote sky over the pine trees. The West Country sun was lusty. The skies were big and wide and strong with colour. The wind from off the Atlantic blew with ocean's power and made a man small yet exhilarated as he met the wet draughts and held himself against them. It was wind, a giant element, but 300 miles took from it the rain clouds of its God strength. It was but air in motion, bodiless, without meaning. The winds which ruled East Anglia became the spirit of the polar ice fields, the blank breath of elemental lifelessness, bitter and frustrate amidst magnetic storms and zones. He started all right. You started coherently, and now you've gone into I don't understand this. So one night, soon after Christmas, we had seen them from the cottage door and had come out to stare in wonder, the children speaking in whispers and asking what they meant, and Robert saying that God was moving in the heavens and the lights were coming from his eyes. A marvellous moment, transcending all the differences and problems and worries of the petty material life, giving to a man a sense of freedom and then of truth, that the letter killeth, but the spirit liveth. One moment, please, ladies and gentlemen. Just one moment. And now I lay the pen and return to the plough. The end. Well, that was a nice book, wasn't it? That was lovely. What a lovely story that was. It's a shame the last few pages just happen to have no words on them. If only. I don't know where we are now. I don't know what's going on. There was no ice wind today, no bracing, will-affirming wind to meet as a worthy opponent after the mental dust of words and figures and the petty competitive cleverness called business. It was the authentic pale sun and wane of the sky of the East Anglia, a little shrill like the language it made, a little blank like simple like the human character it created in those men who worked their bodies on its earth and did not go to the marketplace. It was nearer to me than the fuller air and light and greenery of the rich rain seaboard of Devon and the West. Here was no mystic fertility of the Celt, but a simple Nordic straightness. The gods were not dark and homeless, but clear, direct and strong. And with a feeling of joy, of being in the authentic flow of life, I filled the measure with seed and poured it, true golden wealth, into the hopper of the drill. At last I was sowing my own corn. Bob drove the tractor and I walked behind the drill. My job was to watch the 23 streams of seed falling down pipes into the hollow iron shoes which were dragging through the seed bed. I carried a stick in my hand with an iron tip to it to free any coulter, as the shoes were called, which might get clogged by bits of earth and grass. The seed drill was a simple affair. You poured the seed into the wide, narrow box on top, shut the lid, lifted the lever which let the coulters into the soil, and the tractor driver let in the clutch, and away it went. The wheels of the drill turned cogs which made iron fingers in the seed box revolve slowly over the spillway pipes. The corn dropped down the lines, being scored by the 23 shoes below. Round the field we went, sowing the headlands, on which we could be turning as we crossed and recrossed. 4 times round the hedges we went, Bob driving on the line of a marker, an iron bar which scratched a line in the earth to guide the driver next time round. The seed bed was made so well that none of the coulters got clogged, and I proposed driving the tractor faster in top gear while Bob sat on the seed box of the drill. We tried this once across the field at 4 miles an hour, and Bob said that the seeds were sowing evenly. "Blast, I like this patent," he muttered. "That's twice as quick as the old horses." A sack of seed soon went. Bob had set one every 50 yards down the hedge. He heaved upright the 200-weight mass, unfastened the green string around its mouth, and putting his arms about the heavy sack, levered it with his knees against the rim of the galvanized iron bushel measure, so that the rim pressed against the side, controlling the rush of grain lest it overspill. It was a strong iron measure with 2 handles, and the best I could buy in Norwich to the last 20 years. After the way they had to eke out these shoddy tools and implements, I wanted to provide the best equipment for the men. This was one of my minor mistakes, for they were not ready to receive them. Less than 18 months after my fine new measure had 37 dints in it, each from a different blow, and also it had crushed out the shape, the metal warped and broken, and when I asked how it came to be in that condition, nobody knew. The mental fear and diffuseness of the village mind, unassisted in childhood by school or church or chapel, and maintained in later life by dread of being without work, was symbolised in my seed measure. He gets distracted so very easily. Why don't you just carry on telling us about the farming you were doing and not suddenly the intimate details of this bloody piece of apparatus that has a history to it that we didn't really need to know? Before we brought up the seed sacks that morning, the tractor had drawn 2 tons of fertiliser in 100-weight sacks, neatly loaded in the green trailer, up the new road and onto the field. I didn't like artificials, but they had bought them on the advice of the county agricultural station. Having no distributor and being short of time and experience, I decided to buy the stuff in ready mix, granular form, easy to broadcast by hand. The only firm which sold it like this was an international chemical company which marketed its goods with considerable advertising. Their barley fertiliser cost £11 10 shillings a tonne, nearly double the price of an unmixed ingredients. And part of their advertising claimed that their granular fertiliser was double strength. 3.5 hundredweight an acre would cost about £2. I bought it reluctantly, regarding it as whiskey taken by some writers in order to do their work, a habit which eventually finished off the writer. First of the sacks were thrown off by Norman, standing behind the green trailer. I had bought a galvanised can called a seed lip for hitching over the shoulder on a canvas sling. About 30 pounds of fertiliser were carried in a seed lip. It was white, like hail. Norman walked across the field, casting every few steps a saucer full with a sweeping motion of the elbow of his right arm. Each casting hung a momentary white peacock's tail in the air. I noticed, however, that each time the slippery saucer was lifted from the curved tin, about an ounce of the white grains dropped directly below his right foot. Where it fell, the barley would come up thick and green, and perhaps without kernels in the ears. This would spoil the uniformity of the sample, I suggested to Bob, but he said that the coulters of the drill and later the harrows would scatter it. Nevertheless, I made a mental note to have a rough wooden scoop made for another year. All morning we went across the field sowing our barley. The sun shone, the south wind blew. I saw the first wheat ear standing on the dark earth, pausing before flitting on 20 yards, to pause again as though unable to believe that it was home again on its native soil. Oh, is a wheat ear is a bird. Sorry, there was I thinking it was a bit of crop. To pause again as though it was hard to believe it was back on its native soil after the long migrating flight across the sea. The field, it's funny, I was reading in The Theft of Our Countryside earlier this morning or yesterday. We were talking about a bird. I don't know if it was the wheat ear, but it was a bird that migrates. And the problem with this particular bird, and I don't know if it's the same bird, it would go back to the same... Oh, no, it was frogs. It was talking about frogs, that's right. And it was saying that frogs will return to the breeding ground that they were born in, the exact place. And because of the intensive farming and how many ponds and little streams were dug up, diverted and all that sort of thing, and intensive farming had happened from the 1960s, well, from 1947 onwards, the frogs would return haplessly, staring at the place where they were born, unable to comprehend what to do, and as a consequence would die because they couldn't see the pond that they were bred in. And that must have happened all over the place. How awful is that? Sorry, something in my eye. Oh, it's my finger. Anyway, so this bird, the wheat ear, standing on the dark, pausing, but couldn't believe it's on its own native seal after a long migrating flight across the sea. The field was steaming slightly, the sunshine pouring down to wake the wintry sleep of earth. The engine ran smoothly without effort, with what thought and struggle had gone into its creation. Everything was going well on my farm, and for the moment I could relax, dream myself into the spring, the warmth and blessing of the sun, loll on the iron seat with closed eyes, and forget the hundreds of mental pictures of work half finished, the mistakes, the endless striving, the ceaseless urge to improve and do better and build up. For a while now I could breathe deeply of the blue-stained air of youth and share the thoughtless life of the wheat ear. At midday Bob came home and Letitia came up with the luncheon haversack. We sat on sacks under the hedge and ate our food, afterwards staring the engine filling with seed trough and driving across the field. She soon learned to stop at the headland. Oh, sorry, not staring at the engine. I had a different image then. Afterwards starting the engine, filling the seed trough and driving across the field. She soon learned to stop at the headland for me to hop off the drill and lift the lever, which withdrew the coulters from the loose earth, before driving round in a semicircle over the sown land by the hedge and coming round once more and waiting while the coulters were dropped again, the marker flipped out and away across the field. When I grew tired of seeing to the drill, she took my place and I hopped onto the tractor, and the rubber tyres took us effortlessly across to a distant hedge. Then Anne came and I got off the tractor, telling them to sow the field themselves. They smiled at each other as though with apprehension at the responsibility, so as to relieve them from the critical eye. I walked away to where Bob was harrowing the seed with Blossom and Gilbert, a ragged, self-made fag in his mouth. Bob bought 2 ounces of shag tobacco every week and rolled his own cigarettes. He never bought more than 2 ounces. This was his only vice. He never went to a pub and always refused a glass of beer. See, he just gets involved on a sidetrack. That could be in a separate paragraph. Did this bloke never learn how to write? Once, when he had used his expletive of blast, he remarked that he ought not to have said it, that his grandfather wouldn't like to hear him swearing. It was a happy day, and we went home as the sun was setting. The green labels on the corn sacks were fixed on sticks stuck into the field to keep the roots away. But the next morning, when I went up to look at our work, the birds were busily digging up what had been hidden from them. They knew enough to dig along the drills. I yelled at them, but they went on digging. The old sentinel bird in the tree knew the difference between a stick and a gun. "You'll learn," he cawed. "You'll learn." We're on chapter 31. I might stop there now. Chapter 31. 45 minutes of that is enough to dull the senses. How are we doing? Thanks for reading. I'm falling into a deep sleep. Yes, I'm not at all surprised. The level of detail is just too much, isn't it? Do you not? I mean, is it me that thinks that, and the way he goes? "'Twas the bitter chagrin that I inform you that I sold all my painted orcs." Well, I hope you get over the bitter chagrin. Seems he was a man of his time and wants to show his knowledge by using so much literary language, ergo showing off. Yes, that's true. It seems that he's just... it is like it has not been proofread at all, that the publisher said, "Great, we'll publish," and nobody has given him any advice, or he's not taken any advice. Yes, the BBC were a national treasure in the old days. Morton's the only thing I've ever come across that does any justice to LORI. What's LOR? Lotra. LOTR is the BBC radio version. I don't know what that means. Blue stained air of youth. The Twisted Servants of something or other. Graham says a local pond, a mecca for frogs, toads, vanished in the early 70s. Chagrin. I've just had coffee with no chagrin in it. Ah, poor you. Let me just quickly go back and have a look. I still have seen the Tolkien. I love to hear Richard read some Tolkien, but alas, I doubt it would happen. Well, that would be copyright, wouldn't it? Am I reading correctly that the house has progressed to completion, says Linda Kane. Yes, my sister rang during the show and announced that, well, on the 15th, everything's moving. We'd had no news what was going on, and then on the 15th, it's going to go to contracts exchanged and that sort of completion, I guess. I don't know what happened. I don't really know what happened. I bought a house once, 30 years ago. The house I'm in now. 30 years I've been in this house. 30 years. They won't let me out. And I can't remember what happened. I cannot remember at all. I know that there's completion or there's an exchange, and then there's completion. And I don't really know what the difference is. Presumably you exchange contracts, is it? And then you sign the other contract, say I've sold it to you for the sum of, and then there's a date, is it, that just says, okay, this will happen on this date, not immediately you sign the contract. I really don't know what happens, but no doubt I shall be guided, and no doubt there will be a huge bill that comes out of the money that the house eventually sold for. Tolkien wouldn't mind, he's dead, says Stiltskin. That's true, but it is his estate that would mind, unfortunately. There is a friendly conspiracy brewing. Next book, Lord of the Rings. Oh, L-O-T-R. Is that what it is? Lord of the Rings. Oh, yes. We just wouldn't be able to do it. I don't think we'd be able to get away with it. I understand the problem with copyrights. Yeah. Copyright would be... It's a shame. If we could find another book, I would ditch this one in an instant. Because I've got the measure of it. He struggles on the farm and, you know... I'm beginning now not to enjoy it so much. I don't think he's as good a writer as I thought, or at least not in this book. I don't know how everybody else feels. It would be a shame not to finish it, but it's becoming more of a hard slog. And, you know, I think he's trying to get over that his farming experience was hard, so the reader has got to suffer at the same time, which I wonder how many people actually finished the work. And I wonder how many times was it published? It would make you think that it was only ever published once because there wasn't enough demand for it. But I lie. Here it says, first published in February... Oh, you can't read it because it's in Roman numerals, but 1949, I think it is, by Faber and Faber. Second impression, March the same year. Third impression, November the same year. Then 1943. Then 1944. Then 1945. Then 1946. Seventh impression. But thereafter... And it's on bank. It's printed on bank. And if I remember reading, they printed books on cheap paper to save money during the war. Read Arkenfield. Oh yes, I've got Aikenfield rather. I've got Aikenfield. I think it's in the other room. Any Alan Bellitz would love to hear you read his accent. Yes, but again, copyright. I'm on page 307. Says James Poulton. Of what? Of this book. 307. I'll tell you where you are then. I'm on 258. If you're on page... Are you reading this book? James Poulton. Are you reading it? Has anything... you know... Is it worth carrying on? Misfit. You're on chapter Misfit. Presumably. Yes. All right. Okay. What's your opinion? Give me your opinion. Yeah. Change. Yeah. Change a few words. Yeah. No, yeah, but you can't quite do it like that. Exchange first when completion date is confirmed. Completion date is when the keys are exchanged. Exchange first when... Oh, I see. So you have a date, say the 30th of July, for the sake of argument, and so you might... So when you know it's the 30th of July, you might exchange first. Exchange the contracts before that date, so you might do that on the 27th of July, knowing that the keys are going to be exchanged on the 30th. Yeah, I think I understand. Don't read shill. I've never heard of it. Yes. Anyway, going to stop there now. I think, ladies and gentlemen, I probably need to stick some logs on the Essie, which I lit earlier today. A Scapegoat is a good book. Oh, The Scapegoat. Exchange is the point when both sides are committed to carry on with the sale. Oh, right. I thought we were fairly committed. Well, I suppose we're not committed in terms of we could pull out. Yes. Oh, I see. So that commits us definitely to it, and then it could be a week later when the keys go. Not the Shamir, but Dr. Zeus would be ace. I don't really know. Is Dr. Zeus the stripy cat, the orange and white? That's a child's book, isn't it? We've done so well with the books. You know, the first 3 books were great. J.B. Priestley was great, had depth and feeling and revealed something about the country, and as did Narrowboat and Morton's. They all gave us a different impression of this period of time, and I really enjoyed reading all of those, and they were terrific. This has been a battle. The Cack-Handed never got off the ground. That was a battle. Good editing. Miss certain chapters. The problem is that there is no dramatic tension to the story. That's true. He talks more about the farmhouse revenue. Oh, does he? I'm going to think about this because I think we may have got to the point where I'm just running out of juice. And as we said before, if I'm not enjoying it, I can't read it with enjoyment. And I think Morton Lewis there has exactly given us, there is no dramatic tension. There's no investment. I mean, I know he's clumsy, and it's just like it's almost as if he just thinks that by adding... I know there's a principle in writing that your hero should always have peril, because if you have, or conflict, because if you haven't got conflict, where's the story? We went out today and we ploughed the field, and it was great. We went out the next day and we ploughed the field, and it was great. And we ploughed the field the next day and nothing much happened. It was great. It gets boring. But it also gets boring if we ploughed the field and the tractor broke down. We ploughed the next day and the tractor, and then this happened. And it's like, really? Really? Is this doesn't ring true? Everything you do, you cannot be that incompetent. And then it's not even done it in a comic way. I mean, if you could hear him getting angry or shouting at somebody or running into a field and throwing his hands up to let off steam, or something to make you smile with his unhappiness, and for him to be laughing at himself. You know, I think if you can have things happen to you, but if you can write it in a way where you take yourself out of the picture and say, you know, this happened and how stupid was I? I really honestly believed that this was it. And yet again I fell for it. How stupid. And I went and I banged my head against the wall until it was blue. And then I sat down and I went to the pub and we all corralled for half an hour. And I came back. This time I was more determined. But oh no, yet again. You know, at least there would be some emotional engagement. But I'm losing any emotional engagement with the character. We ploughed the fields and scatter the good seed on the land. Yes, that's true. There is no structure to his thoughts. No, and he just drifts. So we may well because I don't want to lose the momentum. Is there any Faulty Towers books? Says Dave S. Yeah, well, you see, anything modern would be too much in copyright. I mean, this is in copyright because there is the Henry Williamson Society who looks after his books. But to be honest with you, I'm sure they couldn't be asked either. Is there another Priestley one you could read? Well, there is. I mean, there's a number of. I did read one to myself, The Good Companions. That's a very long novel. We will have to have a think. I think we'll have to have a think. Anyway, for now, I'm going to leave it there and go and make myself a cup of tea because I'm thirsty. But we'll have a little cogitation and come up with another suggestion because it's a shame. It is a shame. It's just incredibly long. Yes, he did the incompetence in a Norman Wisdom way. It would be hilarious. Exactly. Oh, Mr. Grimsdale, they're loaded up. They can't do that. You can't do that, Mr. Grimsdale. It would be funny. Read or choose your own adventure book. Get an audience involved. Well, it's true. I think Arkenfield might be a choice. Says thing. Yeah. All right. Angel Pavement. James Poulton says, isn't that by Winston Poldark author? What's his name? Winston Graham. Angel Pavement, isn't that by him? Or is that a Priestley one? Check out. Oh no, I think you're right. I think that's a Priestley one. Winston Graham. He wrote some good. There is a couple of good ones of him, not the Poldark ones, but there's some good ones by him. Read Splidge the Cragflinger. Yeah. You could do an Inspector Calls with all the voices. That's true. Could do that. I'll have a think. Thing. What? Thing. J.B. Priestley. Oh, yeah. Thing. Wasn't it? Thing. That's J.B. Priestley goes on about the thing, doesn't he? Is it that him goes on about the thing? He does. That's right. He does. Anyway, I'm going to go. Thank you very much for watching. Very kind. Read Splidge the Cragflinger. I could read Splidge the Cragflinger. It is a children's book. I have got. I have got other of my children's books I could read, but and they're really grown-up books, but for children. To think about that. Anyway, The Rats is a good one. Yeah, is that Stephen King? That's again copyright. Anyway, good to talk to you. I'll have a think, and we'll anything apocalyptic. I thought you referred to me as thing. Oh, thing. Oh, a C. Did I? I hope not. Anyway, I didn't mean it. If I did, sorry, thing. Anyway, got to go quickly. He rushes to turn the stream off before people get angry. Ta-ta.